Hey everyone, it's Argonath here from The Right Way, and today New Zealand has been shocked by another shooting where three people have lost their lives. You will remember a couple of years back we had the Christchurch shooting, which was absolutely disgraceful, and so many people lost their lives that day. It's just um, unbelievable what happened. But we have another shooting appear here. I mean, these don't happen very often in little old New Zealand where I am. So we're kind of not used to it over here. And you may or may not be aware that after the Christchurch shooting, the government put in place they did a big gun buyback they made certain guns outlawed, and people had to return them back to the police, and they got some money back from it, and certain other guns were outlawed. But it doesn't get rid of the guns from the crims. Somehow the crims always know how to get some particular guns. Um, so basically they've taken the guns off the law-abiding citizens, and it's basically the crims that have the guns, which is pretty much not what we want, really. So we've had actually more shooting violence, more gun violence in New Zealand after the Christchurch shooting and the new gun laws put in place than what we had before. It's just absolutely incredible. So it hasn't actually done anything to reduce gun violence in New Zealand. So basically this piece of shit guy gunned down a bunch of people, and we're just going to go through some of the information we know about this guy. And in fact, this piece of shit should not have been should have been out in the public anyway. He should have been locked up in jail because he was already on a home detention sentence that our woke liberal judges give out, and we can see that it's not working. I mean, all you hear, like when anyone in New Zealand talks about getting tough on crime, all of these woke liberals always going about, oh, getting tough on crime has never worked. But I can't remember, I'm over 50 years old, I can't remember anywhere in my lifetime when New Zealand was ever hard on crime, right? We've never been hard on crime in New Zealand. We've always had light sentences and so on. So I don't know where all these woke liberals get the idea that getting hard on crime has never worked, because we hardly ever tried getting hard on crime. But anyway, let's have a read about this piece of shit guy. So the Auckland CBD shooter. So let's have a read of this. The gunman who killed two people in Auckland's CBD on Thursday morning told his domestic violence victim, "You don't know what I'm capable of." So basically, this guy was on home detention sentence for domestic violence. Okay, so let's have a look at what he actually did. So the piece of shit, Matu Tangi Matua Reid, 24, was sentenced on domestic violence charges in March, so March of this year. He was described by a probation officer as being of low risk of reoffending, but his risk of causing harm to others was considered to be high. What the hell is that? Low risk of reoffending, does that mean that, but his risk of causing harm to others was considered to be high? That seems totally around the wrong way, right? So I think it means that his reoffending in terms of domestic violence was low, but his risk of causing harm to others to be high. So you'd think you'd look at both parts of that before sentencing this guy into home detention, right? This is because of the violent nature of the present offending. The judges. So this piece of shit judge as well, Steve Bonner, his sentencing note said, new documents obtained by the Stuff news website also reveal Reid was previously required to undergo anger management, and considered that he had been misdiagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Is it these days that whenever anyone does anything really bad, we're always trying to find things that will excuse what they've done? So he might have been misdiagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Does that mean anything? Does that give him a right to just go around and shoot people? You know, does that make it any less what he's done? No. Did he actually go to his anger management classes? I would make a bet to you probably didn't. Let's carry on. Reid was sentenced in March on charges of injuring with intent to injure, willful damage, male assault female, and impeding breathing. Now in New Zealand, You might get charged on all of these different things, and you might get sentenced on all of these different things, but the stupid judges make all of the sentences concurrent. That means they're all served at the same time. So if you get 6 months for intent to injure, 3 months for willful damage, 6 months for male assault female, so that's 12, let's say 15 months in total. You only do 6 months because everything is done at the same time. So effectively, you serve one sentence, and it doesn't matter what else you do, you still only get the one sentence, which is absolutely disgraceful. I reckon that all of these should be anything which is violent things, they should all be served concurrently, which means you do your 6 months for intent to injure, then you do your 6 months for willful damage after that, then you do your 3 months or whatever it is for male assault female after that. Do them all concurrently and lock these pieces of shit up. The sentencing notes, which have been released to Stuff on Thursday afternoon, set out the background for Reed's offending, which happened back in September 2021. So let's have a look at what this piece of shit actually did. Right, and this is what he has done, and that's earned him home detention, sitting at home, eating pizza, drinking, playing PlayStation games, whatever. So he was living with the victim, who was his girlfriend at the time, when he offended against her. On 16th of September 21, Reed and the woman had been drinking. At around 11:30 p.m, Reed became angry at what the woman was saying and pushed her, causing her to fall off her chair and collide with the dressing table and wall before falling to the floor. Now that sounds pretty bad, but let's keep going. What else did this piece of shit do? When she tried to speak to him, Reed verbally abused her and threw something at her head, hitting her right eye. So he basically could have put her eye out at that point. Getting worse, he threatened her and suggested he would take out her family before attempting to punch the woman. So there we go, making threats against her family. When the woman got up off the ground and tried to tell him to stop, he kicked her in the stomach and sent her flying backwards. So imagine how much force it would take to send someone flying backwards with a kick. While she was on the bed, he stood over her and used both his hands and gripped and squeezed her throat for 10 seconds. So think back to everything he did. Pushed her off the chair, pushed her into a wall and table, verbally abused her, threw something at her head and hit her eye. He said that he would take out her family. He then tried to punch her. He then kicked her off the ground and she flew back. And then he's tried to strangle her, and he strangled her for 10 seconds. Now let's hear what this effing idiotic judge says. This is not a short period of time when someone is being strangled, Mr. Reed. It would have been a terrifying event for her. Of course it would be. So what are you going to do, Judge? This was not a short episode of violence. The violence was accompanied by threats and use of weapons, namely the scissors. And so he had weapons as well. Scissors and a wine bottle and the object that was thrown at her head. Think about all this violence which is going on, right? You'd think that this piece of shit will be locked away in jail for a good period amount of time. But no, here's the piece of shit judge, Steve Bonner, useless judiciary that we have in New Zealand. Absolute pieces of shit, most of them. There are a couple of good ones. The woman, fearing for her life and crying, attempted to calm him down, but he continued to verbally abuse her, slap and punch her. So he's still carrying on the attack. He then said the words to the effect of, "You don't know what I'm capable of." The woman managed to escape and phoned police from a petrol station. When Reed was spoken to by the police, he denied any criminality in regard to the injuries suffered by the victim and said it was a result of rough sex. What a effing idiot. Douchebag, scumbag, every adjective in the book can be put at this guy. I'm really glad that either he shot himself or the police shot him and he's dead, because we don't have to go through all the trial that we would have to go through, and then putting him up for life imprisonment, because we don't have the death penalty for pieces of shit like this, but we should have. The victim impact statement described the woman's physical injuries, which included a fracture to her neck after she was strangled, but she forgave Reed. What a stupid woman. Why would you go back to a guy like that? But I guess that's what happens with domestic violence. They become reliant on their abusers. But he gave her a fractured neck, right? So fractured a bone in her neck. Surely this is serious enough for this piece of shit to be locked up in jail. The victim said she thought Reed had a generational anger within him and Reed needed help. The woman did not want Reed to end up in prison. Well, that was your big mistake, woman, and look at it's cost 2, I think possibly 3 people their lives. That's on you as well. The probation officer, so the probation officer that looks after this guy, said Reed felt like he wasn't treated with respect and he was demoralised on a daily basis, and that built up to the offending. A cultural report, so in New Zealand, whenever someone goes up again into trial, they always do a cultural report to see if they've come from a certain ethnicity or they've come from an impoverished background. So all of those things go into sentencing and they take time off for that. And they do it every time they're up for some sort of charge, not just once. You should only, all this cultural report stuff should only be help you out once, right? Once you've been charged, you've gone to jail or whatever, and you come out, none of this should be taken into account again, right? You've had it once. You know what happens if you break the law. You should get the full sentence every friggin' time. So the lives of these people go onto this piece of shit judge as well. I'm so angry about what has happened. So the cultural report period said he had a systemic deprivation in his background, a disconnection from his culture, I don't know what that has got to do with it, a history of family instability and hardship. What hardship? And had been exposed to domestic violence and physical abuse as a young person. Well, that probably is a true thing, that if someone sees if someone sees that and has that done to them, they're more likely to behave the same way because they think it's the same. Somehow we need to break this violence, and maybe we just lock these people up so that they can't do it to other people. All right, maybe that's the way we break it. He ran away from home at an early age, report said. There may have been also mental health issues. All of this makes depressingly familiar reading to me, Mr. Reed. You are one of a large number of young men who come before this court with those sorts of background and circumstances. But do you do anything about it, Judge? No, because you just let them off with these ridiculous light sentences so that basically they think, oh, I'll just do it again because I'll just get a light sentence again. Do home detention. Just sit around all day playing PlayStation or Xbox. Watch movies off the internet. Get food delivered to me. Drink alcohol. I mean, there are probably conditions where he has to follow, but no one does any checking on that, right? They don't get people go to their houses and make a unforeseen visit to these people. So let's have a look at this effing piece of shit judge, idiotic judge. The starting point for the sentencing was 2 years and 3 months imprisonment, but lifted to 3 years for the violence used, vulnerability of the victim, and the fact that Reed was on supervision at the time. So he was on supervision at the time of his offending. Oh my God. So it should have been 3 years jail time, right? What did he get? Reed was then given a 9-month discount for his guilty plea. What? A 9-month discount for an early guilty plea? That's way too much. A couple of months I could probably understand, but 9 months? That is ridiculous. A further 7-month discount for his background. What the F? Which Judge Bonner was satisfied had a connection. It doesn't matter. It doesn't, just because you had a bad background doesn't mean you can still go around and violently assault people or whatever, right? It's just ridiculous. In his sentencing notes, Judge Bonner said he was satisfied piece of shit needed help to address any issues he had, and that home detention was an appropriate sentence. You just killed 2 people, or possibly 3 people, Judge Bonner, you idiot. Because of you, he was out when he could have been in jail up to 3 years, right? And those people could be alive. That is on you, Judge. You did that. So basically, I think in New Zealand, is it 2 years? I think if you can get a 2-year jail sentence, then you qualify for home detention. And because of the piece of shit government that we have, the leftist-leaning Labour Party, who their target is to have a 30% reduction in the prison population. So how do you think you get a 30% reduction in the prison population? You stop people going into jail and you release people early. Right? Not that they deserve not to go to jail or deserve to get out. Let's just do that so that we can reach our 30% reduction in the prison population. Right? I do not want to send a young man like you with a limited history to prison. I think that would be counterproductive and actually set you down the wrong path. He's already down the wrong path. He needs consequences for his actions. You just killed 2 people, Judge Bunner. You idiot. But you need to realize, Mr. Reed, you need to turn your life around from here, because if you commit further offences of violence in the future, things are not just going to get worse for you. You could well end up going to jail. Not with you lefty-loving judges around. You look for any way of not having to put them into jail. Judge Bonner sentenced Reed to 5 months home detention. Remember what he did? Right? Push the woman against a wall and table, threw something at her head, hit her eye, kicked her in the stomach, strangled her, caused a fracture in her neck, and got 5 months home detention. With a number of conditions though, including that he was not to possess, consume or use any alcohol or drugs. Reed was also required to attend and complete an appropriate non-violence and alcohol and drug program, but we have no idea whether he actually did that. At the end of the sentence, Judge Bonner told Reed he hoped he would not see him back before the court again. Well, Judge Bonner, you're not going to see him again, because he killed 2, possibly 3 people, and he either killed himself and got shot. You effing piece of shit, both the judge and this person. Right? They don't have parole officers going around to each person's address. They just ring them up. That's all they do. Or they go down to the bloody PO office. No one goes to their house and has a look at what the conditions are like, whether they're abiding to their conditions and so on. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, why was he out? Well, Reed was wearing an ankle bracelet because on home detention, so it alerts the police if they go out of where they're supposed to be. But there was a condition of a sentence which allowed him to work at the construction site. So again, trying to be all, lovey-dovey, trying to bring out the good side in this person. But look at what he did, right? That's not a good person. That's a piece of shit. Costa also confirmed Reed did not have a gun license. Of course they don't have a gun license, because the crims don't need a gun license because they're criminals. He probably got it from some of his criminal mates or something. Oh my god. Reed was required to report to his probation officer twice every 10 days, and last reported yesterday. This person had approved regular absences to travel to his place of employment, including at the time of the incident occurred this morning. Okay, here we go. Reed had completed an alcohol and other drug program and had twice been tested negatively for drugs. So there we go. He did complete it, and he says he was also actively engaged in a non-violence program. Well, looks like the non-violence program is a dud. It didn't actually do anything. But anyway, that's the story of this piece of shit, and obviously the piece of shit is to blame for everything, because he killed these people. But Judge Bonner, you really take a lot of responsibility for this as well, because that guy should have been locked up in jail. And I am very happy for tax, and I'm sure a lot of people in New Zealand are very happy for our taxpayer dollars, instead of frittering it everywhere on green stuff and cycle lanes and cycleways and all this kind of rubbish. Build friggin' prisons. Anyone who does any type of violent offending and is convicted should automatically serve a prison time. I don't care if they're not rehabilitated. Just get them out of society for amount. Make all the sentences consecutive, so that they have to, the more things that they're convicted of, the more time they spend in prison. Just lock them up, right? Lock them up. They do their time. When they've done the time, they get out. If they do anything more, lock them up again. And of course the Labour government got rid of the 3 strikes law in New Zealand because they're a bunch of woke idiots, and that needs to be brought back in. So hopefully we have a change of government that will actually work. But build more prisons, lock the pieces of shit up, get them out of society. It will help save lives, because these people died needlessly when this piece of shit, Reed, should have been locked up in jail. Anyway, that's some information about this piece of shit person, and my views on it. And if you agree with me, let me know in the comments section. If you don't agree with me, then let me know in the comments section as well, and why you don't agree with what I'm saying. quite happy to read what you're saying, and I don't delete any comments that anyone makes. I'm not a big YouTube channel or anything anyway, very small, tiny in fact, so that's perfectly fine. If you like my content, please subscribe and also click the notification bell so that you'll get notified when any future videos get put up. Anyway, that's it from me. Hopefully I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.